Ooh, okay. Shalom, folks. Another sped up video, so we're gonna get right into it. We're gonna do the whole series basically like this, so let's go. Israelites of Asia teachings, Mahayana Buddhism, and the ancient Israelites. Let's go. Oh, disclaimer: you can pause and read. Disclaimer: you can pause and read. Disclaimer: you can pause and read. If you can't get past these three slides, this video isn't meant for you. Disregard and leave. You aren't meant to. Okay, let's go. Video inspirations. Shout out Lex Will. He's been doing research and teaching much of the truth for years now. He had brought up and covered the connection of Buddhism being connected to the Israelites, such as some of the oldest schools being Israelite in origin. Check out. Well, I'm not fixing any of the edits, so yeah. Check out his channel and show your support to him. His channel link will be in the video. It will be below and down. Will be down below in the description. Oh, I can't read. All right, let's go. Video sources. Y'all can pause and read. And let's get into it. Mahayana Buddhism. The name is purported to mean great vehicle in Sanskrit. It is one of the three prevailing branches of Buddhism as a whole and had originated in the first century BC. It accepts the main teachings of Buddhism and also scriptures that aren't accepted by the other branches such as Theravada and Vajrayana Tantric as canonical. Meaning there's some scriptures that it accepts that the other two schoolings such as Theravada and Vajrayana Tantric don't accept. It was originally widespread throughout ancient Central Asia. The Kushan Empire/Kingdom had first patronized its teachings, with its borders encompassing parts of Afghanistan, Pakistan, Tajikistan, and northern India. Its influence spread from there and even reaching into China, Korea, and Japan. Interesting. Okay. Components of Mahayana Buddhism. Some of the primary components of this are the Bodhisattva ideal. This concept is central to Mahayana Buddhism. A Bodhisattva is a person who postpones their own enlightenment in their journey until all others have been liberated from their own suffering. The Mahayana, the Mahayana, I keep pronouncing wrong, the Mahayana Sutras. These are often a broader list of scriptures that are recognized by Mahayana Buddhists. They include the Prana Paramita Sutras, which emphasize the importance of wisdom, in the Pure Land Sutras that detail rebirth in a Pure Land Buddha field. So it sounds like you are righteous, you are given second life after judgment, Bang Bop. And diverse schools. It has a variety of schools under it, such as Zen, Nichiren, Pure Land, Diantai, and others as well. Okay. Connections between Mahayana Buddhism and the ancient Israelites. Note, considering if you're watching this video, you've seen my other video, Israelites, Iacobites of Asia / China. It provides the basis and context for much of the material in this video, as well as a perspective on where these Israelites were in particular. If you haven't seen it, go back and watch that video. So I've made a new condensed video, as I'm fairly certain you're all aware of. I condensed it from 2 hours to 51 minutes. So it's condensed, it's concise. You may have to pause and read a few of the parts, but it's much shorter. Okay, we're continuing. Ancient Israelites traveling in Asia. Concerning this book, a long title name, you can pause and read it. It goes into detail with the history of the Saxons, being the Sakai, Being the ancient Israelites, from the previous video and research, we've reached the conclusion that the Israelites are indeed native to Asia, specifically to the Gansu in China. They, oh, as mentioned, also details, they are also mentioned, they as well mention also the details how they also inhabited northern India and western China. Okay, yeah, I definitely butchered this. They also, they as mentioned, okay, basically it talks about how they also inhabited northern India and western China. My apologies for the typos. I'm sorry about that. Speeding this up. It also explains the creation of Buddhism, the teachings of it also being synchronized versions of biblical scriptures, but also being very much centered around wisdom, righteousness, and law. The reason it is relevant is the fact that Buddhism, Mahayana in particular, was prevalent widely throughout the Kushan kingdom in the 1st century AD, which was founded by the Yushi and Tokhari peoples. It fell in decline later on with the conflicts of religions such as Hinduism, Islam, and other pagan practices. A modern analysis of origins. With aforementioned book as the primary source, we can say out of the modern theories, the cult of the book theory seems to be the most genuine and in line theory given by the experts in the case of the origins of Mahayana Buddhism. In comparison to the Torah or Tanakh as a whole, it is often expressed deeply by the Ishi and said patriarchs and prophets to study scripture, pray, and meditate wisdom, be giving, be courteous, and give if you have surplus, and be righteous within the law. There are many similarities to be seen. And as we can see here, the cult of the book theory, defended by Gregory Chopin, states that Mahayana, Mahayana arose among a number of loosely connected book worshipping groups of monastics who studied, memorized, and copied and revered particular Mahayana sutras. Chopin thinks they were inspired by cult shrines where Mahayana sutras were kept. Chopin also argued that these groups mostly rejected stupa worship or worshipping holy relics. If you are familiar with the laws of Moses, in the covenant, it showcases the fact that we are to worship the Most High through the book, not worshiping the book, but through the book, it states. And also the fact that we're not supposed to be idolaters. So worshiping or having holy quote unquote relics would be considered idolatry outside of scrolls. You get what I mean? And having the actual words. And also the fact that again we are supposed to know and have the law within our heart. This sounds like them more or less studying and understanding the law and having it within their heart. It's revered and they memorized it and they studied it in a group of monastics. Monastics being monks, which also is just a different form or version of saying priests. So again, this theory would be the most correct, I'd say, because you have this guy down here who disagrees with it, argues against all of it. Well, in reality, I'd say out of all the current theories, this guy or this theory, the cult of the book theory, defended by Gregory Chopin, seems to be the most on point in regards to how it came about to being. So yes, and again, well, I'm sure y'all have already noticed. When you break down the word Mahayana or Mahayana, you have the most size name right here in the middle, Haya or Hayah. So keep that in mind. And again, you know, uh, it was proliferated and patronized by the Kushan kingdom, which was filled with the Yushi and Tokharian peoples, who were also the Jushi people. So, keeping this all in mind, we'll continue. Now we could look at the extent of influence. You can follow the legend, and you can pause and watch the video here, or not pause and watch. Or you can pause and look at the video. You can screenshot this and zoom in if you want. But as Lex had covered initially, you have the land or the Siam Ayut Haya. So again, the city with the Mostaz name over in Asia, Thailand. Siam being one of the original names of Shem. And again, this is the land of Shem. Let's keep that in mind and let's not forget this is Shem's territory. So all this at one point was Shem, you know. Maybe not Indonesia, maybe not Japan, but mainland Asia was given to Shem. Maybe even islands perhaps, but more or less mainland Asia was given to Shem. And you can see, particularly following the red arrow from Mahayana, that it again originates in India, but look how far it spread out even to Bactria, into the mainland region over here, and all throughout China. You can probably go on to say it was the most expensive schooling of Buddhism because it reached as far as Japan. I know Vajrayana Tantric did, but look how many other places it had visited beforehand. You get what I mean? So yeah, can pause and look at it, but we'll continue. We won't take too long. Now, origins of Israelites and Buddhism. You guys can pause and read this page right here if you so wish to, but it more or less talks about Israelites, you know, being instrumental in the creation of Buddhism. Within the book, The Lost Tribes, and long title, it further reinforces the notion that the Israelites were known as the Sakai, and another name such as the Buddhi. This being evident as the basis for the term name Buddhism and or Buddhist. You know, it is stated that they did arrive in India to the north, and they were seen as distinctly different from the Scythians or Scythians. So again, we know they're not white, or let me be more specific, they're non-Iranic. They're not Iranian, they're not Aryan, and they're not European. They're not part of the Indo-Aryan, European, and Iranian branch of peoples. They're not. They may speak a language that might be considered similar or related, but then again, we know that Tocharian, as we've seen in the last video, stems and comes from Aramaic, which is an which is a Semitic language. So yes. All right, let's continue. In the synchronism of the sutras, again, y'all can pause and read here, but it being summarized right here. Again, y'all can pause and read if y'all like to. But it has been stated in Zechariah that many of the Israelites would go on to make their own laws and statutes that were false and unnecessary as is. So adding to the word when they weren't supposed to add to the word, which is what they did. The Grand Prophet of the Sakai had introduced the teachings of Buddhism into India first and foremost. It was corrupted scriptural teachings that had traces of Brahmi slash elemental worship and other pagan texts. This is purported to have occurred in the 3rd century BC. So about 2 years before the introduction of Mahayana Buddhism, we have standard Buddhism. Maybe not standard Buddhism, that's a misnomer, but you've had the other schools of Buddhism, or more or less earlier versions of it that weren't completely concretized. You get what I mean? Or that's not even the word. That weren't exactly established. There we go. And as you can see here, this lists out the sins of Ephraim's idolatry. You know. So again, y'all can pause and read this if you'd like to, but it discusses the sins of Ephraim and him being, or Ephraimites being idolatrous, the children of Ephraim. And again, Ephraim committing idolatry in high places, such as building monasteries and temples atop of mountains, which we are prohibited to do so because mountaintops are holy, and we're not supposed to be building upon them, let alone eating on them, which is what Ephraim was guilty of doing. Ephraimites in particular had been notorious for creating and setting idols upon high places. This can be seen as mountains and hills that house what we call monasteries today. Them facing judgment from the issue could have been possibly in the form of being removed from their lands by invaders such as the Hamitic Dravidians. They're not the same, but by Hamitic Dravidians, by Indians, the Nepalese, the Burmese, and West and East Asians in the modern day. So more or less do a lot of sinning that Ephraim was doing. They got kicked out of their land, and these people moved in and set up free real estate. So yeah, the bald and shaven in Scripture. It is mentioned in Isaiah 3:24 and Ezekiel 7:18 and Amos 8:10 that baldness was seen as signs of degradation, mourning, and affliction. The king Sagara had driven out the Sakai into Nepal, Assam, and Bhutan, and had destroyed their institutes and ordered them to have their heads partly shaven. With this happening, it is basis for as to why many monks today have shaven bald heads, also knowing and understanding its signs within the Torah. So again, we're not meant to cut our hair to do any of the weird stuff that we're not supposed to really alter or change our hair in the first place. You get what I mean? Whereas this king here, as a punishment or as a derogatory action to the Sakai, he ordered their hair to be partially shaven and cut off. So it's like, yeah, reading, again from these three examples at the top from Isaiah, Ezekiel, and Amos, balding is seen as a sign of, it's a bad sign, nevertheless. And again, we're not commanded not to cut the corners of our head. So, yeah, I ain't supposed to be doing this, and also just forcibly happening upon the people. So they knew. Saxon, Sakai, and Buddhism. And y'all can pause and read this page if you'd like to. The YouTube has a new zoom feature on mobile devices. If you're watching on TV, again, you could just pause and read it. It's up to you. But summarized, Buddhism can be traced back to the originator being named Sakya. I did a bit of research on this. Sakya will come back as Shakya, but again, you could Sakya still derived from the Sakai people, so keep that in mind. They're identified as being Sakya is being identified as being a descendant of the Saxons, or the Sakai peoples over in that region. This religion will go on to transform mainland Asia and bring about the era of the Sakas. Israelites having inhabited northern India, Nepal, China, Tibet, Tajikistan, and Kazakhstan. So Israelites inhabiting all of basically, West Asia and even East Asia, Central Asia, basically. And again, you can pause and read this if you'd like to, but also even goes into talking about the traders of the Maccabees. So, in the book of Maccabees, it is mentioned how the renegades of Israel abandoned the Holy Covenant and joined themselves to the Gentiles. Renegades of Israel had abandoned the Holy Covenant and joined themselves to the Gentiles during the reign of Antiochus Epiphanes. Building a gymnasium in Jerusalem, Epiphanes had originally been named Mithridates. So keep that in mind. Y'all could research this. Explained on the page here, it details how some of the Sakai peoples had been employed by the Yavanas, who would be the Greeks, Javan. This happening during the time of Alexander, Seleucus, Nicator, and Antiochus Soter. It is also stated that the Yavanas are European as well, meaning, Japheth. They are the sons of Javan. The father of the Greeks, and Javan is the son of Japheth. Simple. And let's look at images real quick. So this is a 2nd century AD Kushan relief. The center figure has small coiled circlets of hair that is visible, afro-like if you will, We've discussed how the Yushi founded the Kushan Empire and patronized Mahayana Buddhism. We know that many of the institute's monasteries having been destroyed along with art and texts. So this was carved into a stone wall, right? And you can see and look at the central figure right here, that he has coils. Now, what's kind of weird and odd is the fact that you can see the circle coilets in his head. That these people look distinctively different. You can see the thick lips, you can see the sinuous eyes, the coils in the hair, but the problem is the nose has been broken off or filed off. Whereas she, his is also broken off, but he has his nose. So like missing noses, but they're Afrocentric features. Man, he has an afro. This isn't a hat. Fallen lips, sinuous eyes. No, it's a Negro. The Yushi people. This is what they would have looked like. And more images. And according to Britannica, Bhaitseva Padmapani is described as having fullness of lips, the slender shape and nose with sinuous almond-shaped eyes. So you got Negro features. Look them Phillips right there. Look at that. In this painting, he holds the lotus flower, which is said to represent spiritual awakening, and also is prevalent in the scripture. The fact that the lotus and the lily are also related as well. So you can pause and read right here if you'd like to. This little segment part about him, but this is him. The lotus seen in scripture, the lotus is seen as the symbol of transformation and spiritual enlightenment. It is said to also represent the ideas of purification, an internal journey to oneself. It is mentioned in the book of Job 40:21. He lieth under the shady trees in the covert of the reed and fens strong. Details that meaning you could find the exact detail in Strong's Concordance according to here in H6628, more or less documenting them. They're documenting where you could find the lotus in the scripture. So if you have Strong's Concordance, type that in, look it up. Or if you have the Blue Letter Bible, you can also do the same thing. Or if you got eSword, you can also do the same thing. Keep it moving. The lily in scripture. It is often noted that the lily flower is regarded as a symbol and sign of purity, innocence, and rebirth. It is represented by the spiritual eye renewal and hope in light and darkness. Oh, my apologies. It is to represent spiritual renewal and hope in darker times. My bad, I misread that completely. It is also referenced in the Song of Solomon 2:1. I am the rose of Sharon and the lily of the valleys. And again in the Hosea 14:5. I will be as dew unto Israel, and he shall grow as the lily, and shall cast forth his roots as Lebanon. So again, scriptural flowers, the lotus and the lily. Also, we're gonna get into more images of or more Buddhist images. This is another image, and I'm fairly certain that you can tell that this will be a Negro man. Look at that thick lips. Got a defined nose. You can still see the big old bulbous right bumps right here. He has the sinuous eyes and the eyes that curve. Also, look at the hair. People want to say that this is shelves. Shelves don't do that. They don't look like this. They may look like this, but you mean to tell me they have just collected a bunch of shelves and stuck them on their head? That's not smart. That's really not. So we know for a fact this is Afro hair, and I've seen this shawty a few times. My apologies, this woman a few times. Look at that nose. Look at them lips. Look at them ears. She is a beautiful Afro melanated person. So again, these images they exist for a reason. They're not just made up to just not exist. You get what I mean? Again, they don't even do this hairstyle ever, or they've never done it, or they can't do it. So it's one or the other. But yes, we'll continue. Look at that. Even more images. You got the swirly curly hair. You got the thick lips. You got the pronounced nose. You got the flaring nostrils that only Negroes seem to have. You have the almond-shaped eyes. Again, he's Afro-Asiatic. Afro-Asiatic, and this was another supposed relief of the Yushi. But we know for one, it doesn't match the other one, and two, it's just broken up and beat up the hell. So makes you question, like, all right, something's weird, or unless it's just done historically. And look at that. Now I know she's not doesn't bear exactly the same amount of resemblance, but at the same time, you could tell that they both have Afro features. Again, look at the eyes. She has those chinky eyes. She has the full lips, braids. But again, this is Afro-Asiatic. Again, this is also a Buddhist, I think, bust. So again, Afro-Asiatic features. You can't make it up. And this is from again a Gemini AI, the Kushan and Mahayana Buddhism. We can see that it was a powerful empire that ruled Central Asia and parts of South Asia from the 1st century BC to the 3rd century AD, so about 400 years. Was founded by the Yushi people, who originally are from northwestern China, have been displaced by the Xiongnu. They were tolerant and multicultural, and they embraced all different religions, which led to which is understandably the downfall. Yeah, reached its peak height under the reign of Kanishka the Great. Not sure who that is yet, but we'll learn. Was a Buddhist who sponsored development in Mahayana Buddhism. He's also convinced a council of Buddhist scholars in Kashmir to discuss Buddhist philosophy. Blah, blah, blah. Again, y'all could read this yourselves if you want to. I'm gonna say that. Again, on to the next. More images. Now, this is a quote unquote completed bust of said Yushi head. But it's like, all right, let's get a little funky with this, right? So again, we have a Buddhist living around that area, sometime around there. You have my grandfather, and then you have this supposed Yushi busthead, right? Now, off rip, you can see the sinuous eyes. The curving eyebrows, you can see it. The sinuous eyebrows are not hard to identify. As well as, you may have a thicker mustache, but again, he always rocked a beard, no mustache, so it could have been much longer. It could have been. Also, you got the nose, the eyes. Look at that. Sinuous look. They match. So, you could put two and two together. And, conclusion. We can say that the Israelites were responsible for the creation of Buddhism, these teachings being corrupted schools and truths of the scripture, the majority of monasteries being destroyed or in ruin as opposed to the modern ones in practice by the Sinite and Dravidian peoples today. We were removed from our lands and thus placed in exile, many going to Arsareth, the Americas. They had known of his true name and yet still blasphemed it with the amalgamation of pagan influences and idolatry, such as the sin of the Ephraimites in particular, and the change of Haya Haya to Mahayana instead. We should learn from their mistakes and to remember and abide in accordance to the scripture. As you know, this question being the Yushi/Buddhi, or the Sakai, Saka, and Saxons, and who are the Israelites in exile. Simple enough. So yeah, this is the conclusion, and we're gonna wrap it up. And yeah, future topics. Well, yeah, you guys already get the idea. There's two more I gotta go re-record and produce, but yeah, this is basically it. Shalom, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and y'all take it easy. I'll talk to y'all later. Ow. Shalom.